Hi there, welcome to Kneppy Invest. Happy New Year. It is 2023, and as we have entered the new year, I thought it'd be a good idea to show you some of my predictions for the upcoming year. And more than likely, I am going to be sensationally wrong on the majority of these predictions, just like I was on my 2022 predictions. And I did release a video looking back at my predictions, and for the vast majority, I was absolutely wrong. I was close on a few, and I got one right in regards to a bit more talk about Volkswagen Group overtaking Tesla in EV market share. So have a look out for that video, looking back at my 2022 predictions. Now, this video and these predictions should not be taken seriously, and you should take that sort of thinking into any sort of article, video watch about 2023 predictions. I have seen plenty of these videos, plenty of these podcasts, plenty of these articles trying to forecast what's going to happen in 2023. So let's go back to start of 2022. I think it was Livewire asked about 20 fund managers the company they should own or they would own for the next year. And by far, the most favorite stock was Megaport. And Megaport share price dropped from about $21, $22 all the way down to $6 where it is right now. So just because they are experts, predicting the future, particularly over just a 1 year period, is hard to do. In my professional life, I am forecasting the weather, typically for only 1 day. And in the tropics this time of year, it can be hard just predicting 1 day's weather. So always look at a year-long prediction with a grain of salt and don't take it seriously. I'm only doing this to have a bit of fun so we can laugh back at the results of these predictions in 1 year's time. Let's start off with interest rates. And interest rates right now around about, was it 3.1% or something like that? And since I don't have a mortgage, since I don't have debt, I don't really follow interest rates all that much, but I do know they are rising. But the question is, will they continue to rise throughout the rest of the year? Well, no doubt it's going to be all about inflation. And if we do see inflation fall off quite a bit, there is that chance that interest rates won't rise all that much from here. I think there is a chance we might get a couple of more rate rises and then just level off. There's also the slight chance, maybe even greater than slight chance, that we will see interest rates drop towards the end of the year, particularly if we really start seeing unemployment rise. And that is, I think, a slight to maybe just a little bit stronger than slight possibility. So I think interest rates will be around about 3.75% at the end of the year. I was thinking about just 3.5%. Wouldn't be surprised if we do see interest rates get above 4%, if we do find that inflation is a little bit more sticky. But I think you could go anything between 3 and 4% and probably be right. I think anything over 4% would be very bad news, not only for the economy, but also for the markets as well. Now on to inflation. And if we remember 1 year ago, all the talk in regards to inflation was transitory. And definitely the central banks were wrong about that because inflation is a lot more sticky. And I think there is that potential that it would be more sticky than they're even thinking right now. But I just have no idea. If you do look back 1 year ago, a lot of the economic forecasts, most of those economic forecasts by experts, people who have PhD in economics, they were absolutely wrong. Economic forecasting is hard. So saying that, I'm still going to give an inflation prediction, and my prediction is 4.8%. Right now it's 7.3%. So I do expect inflation to fall, and I think that would be the overwhelming general opinion, that inflation will fall over the next year, or by this time next year. But how much will it fall? And if it doesn't fall, that would be the worst news possible. If we see inflation at 8% this time next year, I think that would be the absolutely worst news we could have. Now on to GDP growth, and I think we're not going to see much growth. I do think we're going to see a slowdown in the economy. Whether we go into recession, I think probably not in Australia. And I think even recession in the United States should be questioned right now. Much better chance of recessions in Europe. Now, technically, United States have gone into recession because they do have 2 quarters of negative GDP growth, but they defined recession a little bit differently than we are because they have this group that get together and they defined or call a recession. So they don't look at GDP growth for two successive quarters, and if it's negative, then they go into recession. They actually call it. They look at all the data, say unemployment, GDP growth, everything, and then they look at the data and then call or say whether the country is in a recession. But I don't think we're going to see much GDP growth in Australia in the next year. I do think we will grow, but it's going to be fairly low at 0.4%. Now on to the XGO, look in the ASX. What is the Australian market going to do? So I was a little bit right. I did think the Australian markets would drop but not by how much they did drop, from about 7,400 down to 7,038.7. A little bit of weakness the last few weeks did push the ASX or the XGO down. I'm a little bit bullish, particularly in the second half of this year, particularly if we do go into recession. And I think if we do go into recession, that could be the time when we see the market rally. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the XGO or the Australian markets down in the first half and then a really nice rally in the second half. And by the end of the year, the XJO or the Australian markets are going to be up more than 10%. So 7,810. Probably the other thing I should mention is if you go back over the last 40 years, it is fairly rare to see the XJO down in 2 successive calendar years. It has happened a couple of times in the past. I think the most recent time was maybe 2011, 12 or 2012 and 13, but it doesn't happen all that much. Even back in the GFC, it was only down big in 1 year, 2008, 2009, it was up, 2007, it was up. So that was only 1 year where the overall market was down. So it doesn't happen all that often when the Australian market, probably even overseas market, are down in successive years, because if you look at historical range, 2 out of every 3 years, the market is up. So if you have 2 out of 2 years where the market is down, that would be unusual, but I wouldn't necessarily rule it out. Now, NASDAQ had an absolutely horrible year, down something like 33%. Do I think it's going to go up or down in the next calendar year? Well, I'm going to say it's going to go 12%, but is that up or is that down? Shouldn't be surprised that I do think the NASDAQ will rally this year and be up 12%, particularly because it has fallen a lot, and I think eventually that drop in the NASDAQ will come to an end, particularly if we see interest rates dropping. So even if there's a threat of a recession in America and interest rates start to dropping, I think that is when the NASDAQ might go on a really nice rally. And I think more than likely that's going to be in the second half of 2023. I was completely wrong on Bitcoin last year. I thought Bitcoin might breach, was it 100,000 at some point during the year, but then fall back a fair bit. And right now it's about 16,000. And I do think Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, a lot more negative sentiment in this space right now. So instead of breaching 100,000, I think there is a possibility Bitcoin will fall below $10,000. I was bullish on gold last year. I'm still bullish on gold. Right now, gold is undergoing a nice little rally. Can that rally continue? I think it can. And if we do go into recession, and if we do continue to see interest rates rise, or not rise, but at raised levels, and if we continue to see sticky inflation, I think there's a better chance gold would go on a rally. So I am expecting gold to be higher than it is right now at about $1,800. So by the end of the year, 2,325. Last year, I forecast the share prices for 5 companies at the end of the year. Those companies were CBA, CSL, Tesla, Novonix, and A2 Milk. I've kept 4 of those companies and then just replaced Novonix with Core Lithium, simply because Core Lithium seems to be a very popular stock among retail ASX investors. So let's have a look at CBA. What is the share price? I think that company will be at the end of the year. I do think banks will be under pressure during the second half of this year. I think they will have a really good half year, but then the second half, I think share prices have the potential to drop, and CBA at the end of the year will be $81.51. CSL, that's a really hard one because CSL has been trade ranging for about 3 years now. Whenever it gets about $300, it drops. So if it does get above $300, I'd be much more bullish on CSL, but I think it will struggle and finish the year at $288.52. Not much different from where it is right now. Tesla has been struggling. And with Elon Musk's obsession with Twitter, I think Tesla has been under pressure. And also there has been hints of decreasing demand within China, and also the threat, maybe not the threat, but that thinking that Volkswagen Group and other electric vehicle companies, and we have to say that Volkswagen Group, Ford, General Motors are all turning into electric vehicle companies. Increasing competition will be a threat for Tesla moving forward, and I think Tesla share price at the end of the year will be $105. Core Lithium share price right now, I think, is around about $1, and I'm fairly bullish within lithium companies for 2023, and I think there is potential Core Lithium share price will be significantly higher. So I'm calling Core Lithium share price to be $3.35, a nice triple bagger for those shareholders in 2023, and I continue to expect for A2 Milk's share price to continue to rally during the year. Not quite as bullish as I was last year, but I still think share price will rise from about $6.50 to $7 right now to $10.41. And I think A2 Milk share price will continue to rally into 2024, into 2025 as well. In my 2022 prediction video, I was foolish to predict that Apple would not be the biggest company in the world by the end of the year. I thought Microsoft would overtake it. Unfortunately, I was completely wrong. So will I be foolish again forecasting or predicting another company other than Apple to be the biggest company in the world? Am I going to be foolish? No. So I expect this to be completely wrong, and I do expect now that Microsoft will overtake Apple. The other two competitors for the title of the biggest company in the world, and that's not including that Saudi Arabia oil company, was Alphabet and Amazon. And I have a feeling both of those companies' markup is now less than $1 trillion, while Apple's markup is still hovering around $2 trillion. And the share price for Apple has remained fairly strong, or relatively stronger than those other two companies, while Microsoft is not doing bad either, but it's still well shy of Apple's markup. So I still expect Apple to be the biggest company in the world. Last year, I thought Alibaba would rally. I thought it would be up 5%, but it was down over 20% for the year. I think it was 25%. Do I still think there is that potential that Alibaba, Chinese companies, will rally in 2023? I think there is that potential. Chinese companies have had a lot of negative sentiment over the past 2 years, and I do think that negative sentiment will shift. So Alibaba's share price will be up by the end of 2023 by 17%. So I am saying that with confidence. I am not confident because I should not be confident in any of my predictions. So even if I seem confident, don't believe me at all. Last year, I was foolish enough, just like the biggest company in the world, to think that healthcare would be the best sector or best performing sector on the ASX, when it turned out to be energy by a big margin. So just because energy was the best performing sector in 2022 doesn't mean it will necessarily be the best performing sector in 2023. In fact, it could be the worst performing sector in 2023. So am I foolish enough, just like last year, to pick healthcare as the best performing sector? Yes, I am foolish this time. I do think healthcare will be the best performing sector in 2023. And just behind healthcare is going to be the tech sector, particularly what's going to happen in the second half of the year. And it wouldn't be surprising to see the best performing sector, tech. So have a look out for those tech companies, particularly in the second half of 2023. Last year, I was silly enough to think there was going to be 251 companies IPO on the ASX. I thought it was going to be a good year for IPOs, But because it was a fairly bearish year for the ASX, we didn't have many IPOs, something between 85 and 90. I do think we're going to see more IPOs in 2023, but nothing like 251. But we're going to say 100, or I'm going to say 126 IPOs in 2023. I thought iron ore would fall below $100 a ton by the end of 2022. I was a little bit wrong because by the end of the year, iron ore had rallied. It did fall below $100 for a brief period of time, but by December the 31st, it was at $117 a ton. So what do I think about iron ore in 2023? Now, funnily enough, I am more confident about iron ore prices in, say, 2025, 2026. I think iron ore prices will be significantly lower than they are right now because of mining companies, iron ore mining companies starting production in Africa, and those mining companies in Africa will be sending China a lot of their iron ore because they are Chinese-run iron ore miners, and that is going to have an impact on Australian iron ore miners and the price of iron ore. So I'm more confident that iron ore prices in 2026 are going to be lower than they are right now. By the end of 2023, I have no idea. So this is just a guess. And I'm thinking it's going to be a little bit higher than it is right now at $125 a ton. Something I did not forecast or predict in the previous video, but I am predicting now, petrol at the pump. What are we going to be paying on December 31st, 2023, and I'm going to be talking about my local fuel pumps. And unfortunately, it's going to be highly dependent on the cycle. So right now, petrol near me is about $2 a litre, while a week ago it's like $1.50 a litre. So depending on the cycle, this could be completely wrong and off. But I do think there is that chance that petrol will start to fall. We're already starting to see oil drop away. And I think at my local pump, it's going to be $1.56, and that's going to be the high point of the cycle. So at the low point of the cycle, I think petrol at the pump will be like $1.10, $1.20. So good times ahead for those who are struggling to pay their petrol, who hate to see petrol so high. Now on to the big question, will United States go into recession? So right now, I think Australia will not go into recession. I think there's a much better chance that Europe will go into recession, but the United States, technically, I think I've already mentioned this, technically did go into recession with 2 negative GDP growth quarters in a row. Now, the last quarter, they did have some GDP growth. So will United States go into recession? I think this is going to be highly correlated to unemployment. If we do see unemployment starting to rise at a significant level, that's when the call might be made the United States is in a recession. But I'm going to go out on a limb because the majority of experts are saying United States will go into recession. I am going to say right now, no. In my last video, I called this particular slide, Watch This Hype. Now, I have noticed over the last 10 years, I'm way too early when it comes to hype. I start seeing something and I think this is worth investing in. And usually I'm like 2 or 3 years a little bit too early. And I even think last year in my Watch This Hype, I was a little bit too early. But Watch This Space is talking about things are going to be highlighted in media and things we're going to start thinking about and talking about. And I think these are issues that humanity will have to face and have to face front on over the next few decades, and something I have really been thinking about over the past few months. So human redundancy. I think there is a really big threat that humans eventually will become redundant because of AI and that sort of thing. And then we have to question about our existence if that happens. So I think there is a almost 100% chance that at some point in the future, I have no idea when this is going to happen, we're going to say, well, AI can do it better than humans. No matter what task or what job, we're going to say AI can do it better than us. And if AI can do it better than us, then what point is humanity? So that's going to be a massive question for us. So you might say creative writing, you might say art. Even eventually, AI will do a better job at art than us. I think it is inevitable because of the advances in AI over the past few years. And we have seen right now significant advances in AI. So the other question will be automation. Now, automation is going to be really important as well. And I mentioned this last year, but moving forward, the question isn't going to be around enough jobs for people. It's going to be enough people for the jobs. So that's going to be the importance of automation. And then eventually we're going to go into the human redundancy question. And I think what's going to lead humanity forward is understanding what place we have in this sort of world. And I think those are going to be the questions, the real important questions over the next few decades. There's also, have a Google singularity of technology or technology singularity, and they're already talking about this sort of thing. They've been talking about this sort of thing for a few decades, and I think we are getting to that point where we have to talk about this a little bit more moving forward. And then, of course, the third thing is AI. So have you seen that chat? I think it's called Chat GPT or something. So it's the next Google. So you put in a question and then you get spat out this answer to the question, and you can continue this conversation for quite a while. Then you can save conversations, and this is going to replace Google eventually. I am wondering whether Google has something similar in their pipelines, because eventually Google won't be needed. And that is why my one big fear around Alphabet, because they generate a lot of their money through Google, and I am a Google shareholder or Alphabet shareholder. So this is one threat I'm thinking about right now for that Alphabet business model, is just this AI and the improvements in AI we have seen in the past few years. Now onto my sporting predictions. I've included a few more here, other than the NRL, AFL Grand Final, Super Bowl. I think I also did NBA and a few World Cups as well. So I've included a few more here, including Major League Baseball and NHL. So who is going to win the NRL and AFL Grand Final in 2023? And before I answer this, just be clear, so you don't misunderstand, I got none of my sport predictions right in 2022 or wrong. So I have decided that instead of picking who I think will win, I'm going to be picking who I hope will win each of these contests, except for one or two. So for the NRL Grand Final, the team I hope wins is, of course, the Parramatta Eels, the team I do go for. While in the AFL Grand Final, and when I say teams I hope, a realistic chance of winning. So that's very important as well for a few of these, and I'll talk about why in a second. And for the AFL, I'm hoping Richmond win again. I do have a soft spot for Richmond, because when I was really young and I saw there was a Richmond team in the AFL, I thought it was Richmond in Sydney. You know, that Richmond suburb, if they call it a suburb, to the northwest of Sydney. I thought that was the Richmond. I did not know there can be many suburbs named the same thing throughout the world. So I do have a soft spot for Richmond, established in 1885. I've done the same sort of thing with the Super Bowl. I have picked the team I hope wins, and that team is the Buffalo Bills. That is the team I go for in the NFL, because I did live near Buffalo for about 3 years, and I started to go for that team. Now, in the NBA, I do go for the Oklahoma City Thunder, because I lived near there for a few years, and just because of the name, Thunder. I'm a meteorologist, so naturally enough, I go for the Oklahoma City Thunder. But I don't think they have a legitimate shot of winning this year. They have a legitimate shot at getting number one, or the first pick in the draft, and it's going to be very important because there's a highly touted prospect. I think there's two highly touted prospects in the next draft, particularly this French guy. I won't say his name because I can't pronounce it. But anyway, they have a better shot at getting that kid drafted than winning the NBA. So I've gone for the team that I think should have won it last year, but they just fell away at the last hurdle, and that is the Boston Celtics. Now onto the NHL and the NBL, which is the National Hockey League and the Major League Baseball. In the National Hockey League, I do go for the Buffalo Sabres, but they've had a really bad trot over the past, seems like decade, maybe even 2 decades, and they have no shot at winning the NHL this year. And I thought, because I went for the Boston Celtics in the NBA, why not go for the Boston Bruins in the NHL? So great year for the Boston sport-loving community. All they really need is for the New England Patriots to win another Super Bowls. And in the Major League Baseball, I actually do not support any team. So I have never lived near a city with a Major League Baseball team. I think the closest I have lived near a baseball team would be the Texas Rangers in Dallas, but I would never, ever, ever go for Texan teams, ever. When I say ever, I mean ever. So I had no idea. So I decided to pick a team that quite a few of the people I know in upstate New York would support. And most of the two teams they would support would be the Yankees and the Mets. And I could never pick the Yankees to win any Major League Baseball the World Series. Could never pick the Yankees to win a World Series. And even though I am hesitant, I've decided to pick the Mets to win the Major League Baseball World Series this year. They have made some nice acquisitions for the next year, so hopefully they do win. I'm pretty sure they haven't won since 1986, so they're on a bit of a drought, just like the Parramatta Eels haven't won since 1986. So maybe this is the year where two teams who haven't won since 1986 can win their teams or the sporting championship, whatever you want to call it. In 2022, we had the ICC T20 World Cup in Australia, and in 2023, we got the ICC One Day World Cup in India. I think it's only in India, not in Sri Lanka, that sort of thing. And because it's in India, that means the probability of India winning the World Cup is enhanced by a fair bit. And I think it will be in a major upset if India don't win the World Cup in, I think it's October, November. I'm pretty sure the final is in November. They haven't figured out the rest of the draw, but the final is something like November 23rd. And I just hate this pick. But I think you can't go anywhere, any team other than India, to win the ICC World Cup in 2023. In 2022, we had the FIFA Men's World Cup won by Argentina. And in 2023, we have the FIFA Women's World Cup staged in Australia. And there's a few teams I was thinking about picking. So USA, England, Sweden, definitely Australia because it's been held in Australia. But I think you can't go past the United States. They always seem to do really well in the Women's World Cup. It's a highly popular team. The USWMNT, what do they call their national teams in football? But I think there's a good chance the United States will win the Women's World Cup. I'd say probably about 30% chance. But so that means there's a better chance that the United States won't win the World Cup. But I'm saying the best, most likely team to win the World Cup is the United States, but it's more likely they won't win. So, yay, logic. And we also have the Rugby World Cup in, I'd say it's going to be September and October in France. And just like the cricket, I think you can't go past the country that is holding the tournament because there's going to be some favours, some refereeing applying favours towards the host country. So I think you can't really go past France winning the Rugby World Cup in 2023. Now on to the biggest films and the biggest TV shows of the year. So in terms of box office, I think the biggest film in 2023 is going to be Fast X, Fast 10. Now, I've stopped watching these movies, so they're just going too far, getting up to the 10th one. What's his name? Jason Momoa, I think he's the bad guy in this movie. But for some reason, people love these Fast and Furious films, and Fast X, I think, is a really good chance to be the biggest film in 2023. Now, I'm going to say something fairly controversial, although maybe not that controversial these days. I prefer TV right now over film. If we go back 15, 20 years ago, that was reversed. I would have preferred film over TV shows. However, we are in the golden age of TV right now. It really started with HBO around the time of The Sopranos, and we started to see way higher quality TV shows being released, particularly from cable in America, where they had way more relaxed laws against them. And then streaming services have really popped up, and there is a fight between the streaming services to release the highest quality TV shows. So that's why I'm way more excited about new TV shows and new seasons of TV shows than I am about films. And the other thing is, I'm not the biggest fan of Marvel. And it just seems like every single few months we have another huge Marvel movie. We need more creativity in the film industry right now. That's just my opinion. Anyway, on to the biggest new TV show. So I'm going to show you 3 TV shows I'm excited to see in 2023. One of those TV shows is a new TV show which will be premiering in about 2 weeks. It's based off a video game, and the other 2 TV shows are just new seasons of TV shows I really, really like. So that new TV show that's premiering on January 15th, based off a video game, is The Last of Us. I have never played the video game. I just don't play video games, just not my sort of thing. But I did watch a few of the trailers, and it has me intrigued. Not only the premise, seems like it has something to do with monsters and zombies, something like that, but also the 2 lead characters, two lead actors or actresses, 2 actors and actresses I have a lot of time for. Pedro Pascal, which this won't be the last time I mention his name, and Bella Ramsey. So just Google Bella Ramsey, and if you do or did watch Game of Thrones, you should know who Bella Ramsey. So those are the 2 main characters in The Last of Us. So I'm really looking forward to January 15. This film or this show will be premiering on HBO. So that fills me with some good vibes, because HBO typically releases really good quality TV shows. So really looking forward to see how The Last of Us comes out. Now on to the 2 TV shows that I know I already like, but will continue their series in 2023 with new seasons. I could have picked quite a few TV shows that will be continuing their series in 2023, but I do think there is a possibility that these two TV shows will have the best reception for the new season, apart from maybe Ted Lasso, because that's really, really popular. So that's another TV show that will be continuing their series in 2023. And Ted Lasso is a really popular TV show. But the first of those 2 TV shows that I think will be pretty big when they do premiere is Succession. Now, really, really like this TV show. I think it is top-notch quality. Now, in saying that, I do think that the Roy family and all the Roy family are despicable people. But just because they are despicable people can't mean I can't enjoy the interaction between each of them. And not only that, the actors and actresses playing these roles, playing these characters, do an absolute stellar job. Can't go wrong with Brian Cox. Can't go wrong with Jeremy Strong. Sarah Snook, who is actually Australian, does an absolutely great job. Even Cousin Greg, played by Nicholas Broad, can't go wrong with him. Kieran Culkin, and let's not forget Ferris Bueller Day Off guy, Alan Ruck. He's also does a pretty good job. So I'm really looking forward to the new season of Succession. It's been a few years since we saw the last season, and I hope the quality of this season is similar to the last few. And the other TV show that I'm really looking forward to, and I do think this will be highly popular on the Disney Plus streaming service, is, of course, The Mandalorian, played by Pedro Pascal, who is a major character, or one of the major characters in The Last of Us. So big year for Pedro Pascal. Have no idea what's going to happen in the new season of The Mandalorian, but this is by far, in my opinion, or closely followed by Andor, the best Star Wars TV show, The Mandalorian. So really looking forward to the new season of this show. And I think it will be highly popular as well. And that's all I have for this video, looking at my 2023 Kneppy predictions. Now, to be honest with you, it was a little bit more than 23 predictions, but I just wanted to keep it as 23 because of the year 2023. So don't hold that against me. This is all in good fun. Don't take these predictions seriously, because I am going to be wrong on the majority of these predictions for 2023. And if you have your own predictions you would like to give us or share, just leave it in the comment section of this video. That's all for this video. Have a good day. Have a happy new year. And I hope 2023 is prosperous for you.